My name is Edmund Challis. I have served as secretary to the Duke of Ashford for 9 years. I manage his correspondence, his appointment calendar, his household accounts, and those matters of estate business he prefers to conduct in private. I am, in practical terms, the man who knows what the Duke does not wish known, and the man who is present for the moments he does not anticipate. I want to tell you about Miss Adeline Voss and what happened during the winter of 1883, because I watched all of it from a position no one else held, and because I have kept it to myself for 15 years, and I think it deserves to be said plainly. Adeline Voss came to Ashford Manor in November, engaged as a companion to the Duke's elder sister, Lady Margrave. She was the second daughter of a country clergyman. No connections, no money, no title, and she arrived with 2 trunks and a letter of recommendation from a schoolmistress in Dorset. She was 22. She was not beautiful in the way that word was used in those rooms. She had a direct, still quality that some of the household found disconcerting. I found it clarifying. The Duke noticed her, I believe, within the first fortnight. I say this because his attention in the drawing-room shifted in the way I had learned to recognize. He is not a demonstrative man, but there is a quality to his stillness that changes when something interests him. He asked me, with studied indifference, who the young woman was that his sister had brought in. I told him. He said, "I see," and returned to his letters. He said, "I see" 3 more times over the following 6 weeks. He found reasons to be present in rooms she occupied. He managed, on at least 4 occasions that I witnessed, to be positioned near her at dinner without having arranged it by any means I could observe. He was not pursuing her. He would have said, if asked, that he was simply present in his own house. But there was a quality to the proximity that I recognized. The difficulty began in February. A house party arrived, Lord Caister and his family, the Wentmore cousins, and a Miss Aldrington, who had been spoken of in connection with the Duke the previous spring. The house became what it always becomes when the titled and the moneyed arrive in numbers, a theater of comparison. Miss Voss, who had been a quiet presence and had managed her position with considerable grace, became, over the course of 4 days, the subject of the kind of remarks that travel through a house like those in pointed whispers. I will not repeat what was said. It is enough to say that it concerned her family, her station, and her unsuitability for the rooms she occupied. Miss Aldrington was the primary engine of it. Lady Caister provided the authority. The Duke was present for at least 2 of these exchanges. He did not respond. I watched him not respond. I have worked for him for 9 years, and I know the difference between a man who has not heard and a man who has heard and chosen silence. He heard. He chose silence. On the Thursday of that week, I was in the library attending to correspondence when Miss Voss came in to return a volume she had borrowed. She did not know I was at the writing desk in the alcove. She stood for a moment in the center of the room, and I could see, from the quality of her stillness, that she was composing herself after something. Then she placed the book precisely on the table, straightened her spine in a way that had nothing theatrical about it and everything real, and walked back out. I do not know why that image lodged so completely. There was no one to see it. She did not know she was being watched. She was not making a statement. She was simply deciding, in a quiet library, that she would carry herself correctly because that was the kind of person she was, regardless of what the house thought of her. I put down my pen and sat with that for a while. Miss Voss gave Lady Margrave her notice the following Monday. She was specific and practical. She had found another position. She would give 4 weeks. She would complete all arrangements in good order. Lady Margrave was distressed and pressed her to reconsider. Miss Voss was kind but did not reconsider. The Duke was informed that evening. I brought him the letter. He read it twice. He set it on the desk. He said, "Did she give a reason?" I said, "Another position, Your Grace." He said, "Which position?" I said. She did not specify to Lady Margrave. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Send her my compliments and ask if she would be good enough to see me in the morning room at 10. She saw him. I was not present for that meeting. I know its duration, 40 minutes, because I was in the adjoining room and I heard the clock. What I know of what was said I know because the Duke told me afterward, with the directness he uses when something matters enough to require precision. He had asked her to stay. She had thanked him. He had asked if there was anything, any arrangement, any adjustment, any matter of the house that could be remedied, that might change her decision. She had said that she did not think adjustments to arrangements were the correct remedy. He had asked what she meant. She had said, gently and without accusation, that she had enjoyed her time at Ashford Manor, that she thought well of its people, and that she had recently arrived at a clear understanding of her own requirements, and this position did not meet them. She had then thanked him for his hospitality and wished him well. The Duke told me this, and then sat without speaking for some time. At last he said, "What are her requirements, do you think, Challis?" I said, "I believe she requires a man who acts, your grace." He looked at me. He did not speak. I said, "She was in this house for 3 months. She was spoken of in ways that I found, personally, objectionable. You were present on more than one occasion and said nothing. She has drawn the appropriate conclusion." He was quiet again. Then, "You are extraordinarily forthright for a secretary," I said. "You have 9 years of evidence that I am, your grace. Miss Voss left Ashford Manor on the 14th of March. She took her 2 trunks and a third that had been added. I am not certain of its contents. The Duke did not come down to see her out. I was at the front steps and handed her into the carriage. She thanked me warmly, which she had always done. I watched the carriage go and then went back inside. The Duke found me at my desk an hour later. He said, "Where is she gone?" I said, "To a family in Wiltshire, your grace. A Mrs. Thorndale, I believe, her schoolmistress's sister." I took the liberty of confirming the arrangement for my own records. He said, "Of course you did." He stood in the doorway for a moment. Then he said, "Is there a postal route to Wiltshire that a letter would reach in 2 days?" I said, "With the right conveyance, yes." He said, "Then I should like to write a letter. I will tell you that the letter took him 4 attempts, and that he asked me, twice, whether a particular sentence was legible in its meaning. I offered no opinions except the one he asked for, which concerned punctuation. The letter was sent. Miss Adeline Voss is now the Duchess of Ashford. She has been so for 13 years. She took the position at Wiltshire, held it for 6 weeks, and then informed Mrs. Thorndale that she would be leaving. I was not present for the proposal. I have it on reasonable authority, from Lady Margrave, who is not reliable on details but accurate on outcomes, that the Duke traveled to Wiltshire himself in poor weather with no announcement, and that the interview lasted under 20 minutes. What I know, because I saw it myself, is that when the Duchess arrived at Ashford Manor for the first time after their marriage, she came through the front door and stood in the hall for a moment, and there was nothing theatrical about her expression. She looked like a woman who had made a clear decision and was satisfied with it. I have worked for this family for 9 years and then 13 more. In all that time I have been thanked for my service twice, once by the Duke, once by the Duchess. The Duchess, I will say, thanked me in a way that suggested she knew precisely what I had said in a doorway on a morning in March. I said, "I only told him what was evident." "Your Grace," she said, "yes, that is the difficult kind. I do not think of it as having been particularly difficult. I think of a woman in a library who straightened her spine with no one watching, and a Duke who needed 4 attempts at a letter, and the distance between those 2 things that I was given the opportunity to help close. That is all it was. The rest was theirs."